Okay, I'm right here on Reparations Part 2, the Brainstorm with the keyboard warrior. If you don't know me, my name is Nazir Devar, Amy Old Yasharal. Yasharal means Israel. Nazir means Prince. So, I'm the Prince of Israel. I'm basically going to recap Part 1. So, learn how to screen share. Yay, me. And, okay. Now, look at here, right? I'm going to start with our boy, Dr. Anderson. He's a smart guy. He studied this reparations thing pretty intensely. He's been championing it for a long time. And let me just pull up his video here for a second. Okay. I want to focus on his lessons because I haven't studied this long, and from the few hours, I probably spent about 200 hours on this subject. That's a very small amount of time for me because I learned very slowly. And I've watched countless videos about it, but Dr. Claude Anderson has the clearest, the most detailed plan out of quite a few people that I've watched here. And the majority of situations normally be just debates and things like that. I mean, it's not a debate for me. So, we deserve reparations, and that's what we need to try to get. Okay, so I'm gonna start here. He talks about Indians, American. He calls them American Indians. This is a very old video. It probably wasn't even politically correct to call them Native Americans back when he made this video. This very old video. He is unaware of his Israelite heritage. So as he's speaking, if you're aware of your Israelite heritage, then you can pick up on things that he's missing. Okay, but I just want you to hear this part here about how he wants Black people to use the Indian model, the American Indian model, which he calls American Indian. We people today call them Native Americans, and we call them the Northern Kingdom. I'm sorry. I'm gonna start this over because it doesn't look like it's recording. was saying. So let's see at 48. Okay, so I'm gonna plug in the speakers here. Just a second.
They want to use the Japanese. I don't want to use the Japanese. I want to use the American Indians. Now, why did I pick the American Indians? Because, see, the American Indians were the only group that was stipulated in the Constitution along with us. See, the Japanese weren't even in the country. See, when slavery was ending, I did not have one Asian in America in 1840. I didn't have one Asian or one Hispanic. Not one Asian or one Hispanic in the entire United States in 1840. So I can't compare with those, but I did have Indians here. And Indians were stipulated in the Constitution along with us. Whenever they talked about black folks, they talked about Indians. But they didn't talk about all Indians. They only talked about those Indians who were not paying taxes. And see, this is very important. They only talked about Indians who were not paying taxes, because you see, Indians were also classified starting in 1870 as being equal to white folks. See, Indians were given an option that you were never given. What they wanted the Indians to do was to assimilate and give up some of the land. They can become white. And the Indian was given that right to intermarry with whites and become white. And you got a system we're going to talk about hopefully by the end of this thing. The system in this country is that people keep talking about, well, we're going to take over whites. You never take over whites. Whites have a process. Each group that comes in, they give you an option of becoming white at some point. So that way they'll always be the majority population.
Okay, so now I want to pause it here for a second because he is not as astute in language as Israelites and Moors and the new generation is today. You know, like I said, I honor my mother and father. You know what I mean? He's a father, obviously. So the reality of what he just said about people give you the opportunity, the whites give you opportunity to become white, right? So what he doesn't realize is that becoming white doesn't have anything to do with your skin complexion. You know what I mean? Becoming white is a legal term. It's a classification of your status. So if you remain black, or if you decide not to utilize your nationality, the basis for redressing the historical ills over the 2,700 years of historical ills that can be written up in our plan here, then you will realize that it's beneficial to change your status to white, because in their terminology, white just simply means to be pure and intelligent in these things, and black means death and some other retarded labels that they put on black. And so if you notice, there aren't any black people or white people. Okay, so white people are, you know, they go from pink, bright pink to weird looking yellow and all kinds of sick colors, pale green and all kinds of sick colors. And of course it is a curse to have yellow thin hair and white as snow skin, or you know, like that. So black people are They go from extremely dark brown to where they kind of look black from a distance, kind of like your hair. When you look at your hair under a microscope, your hair is not black. For those who have very dark hair, your hair it's actually brown. When you look at it under a microscope, it becomes very painfully clear that your hair is brown. So we go from that type of complexion, is the color of your hair, to very light browns and tans and peaches, and you know, those type of colors. So when the establishment or the system that's in place that the Father put here for us to rule speaks about white and black, then they're talking about your mental maturity. They're talking about your maturity level. So white is a form of maturity in the system that the Father has put in place here. So you know, if that is a option that we must become white at one point in time, then the carnal minded people have taken that option and married white people, which is illegal for Israelites. Okay. But an intelligent Israelite will simply change his status to white and continue to marry Israelites. Because, I mean, you can't run out of them. They're in every country on the face of the earth. Okay. That is inhabitable, except for maybe, you know, the North and South poles. I don't think people actually live in those places. So I just wanted to add that little tidbit there about being white, and don't be so distracted by his inaccuracies.
Okay, so Indians became white. Just like you got Hispanics now coming to this country, all the Mexicans, Hispanics, and Latinos. 99% of them is classified by immigration laws and also by their driver's license being white. They are not part of what you all. They got a different issue than you got. And you got Asians now on probation to be white. Okay? So what we're going to do then, we're going to go back and track the Indians. That's the closest thing we can track in terms of reparations. Now, how did the Indians get over and get some of the things they're getting? Indians got slick. Even though the Indians were not quite as bright as black folk were, they were slick. They didn't get the shampoo that we got, okay? Now, what did the Indians do? First of all, nobody said any place in the Constitution, any place else on earth, that Indians were a nation. Nobody ever said the Indians were a nation. What was happening in the country during all the period we were talking about doing the enslavement process and all the things in the 1860s, what was happening is that they were fighting Indians at the same time. All the way back when Abraham Lincoln was coming in playing this little game with black folks, they were now fighting Indians. But the difference was that you had the United States government, the federal government, fighting Indians. The federal government was responsible for protecting white folk. And so therefore in the Constitution, when they talked about, every time they mentioned the word Indian, it was only talking about Indians because the government had to fight Indians. The Department of War had to fight Indians and protect the citizens. So Indians were stipulated for those reasons. The rest of the Indians who went onto a reservation, they didn't have to pay taxes. But any Indian who was not living on a reservation, he had to pay taxes like everybody else. So that's how they divide the Indians between those who live on a reservation and paying taxes. Those who lived off did pay taxes. But Indians always had an option. They didn't all have to live on the reservation. They could go either way, one way or the other. So they set up this situation where Indians then were being controlled or fought by the United States federal government. So Indians were in a special category. Now here's what happened. After the Indians lost most of the battles in the country, the federal government was still dealing with them. They lost, but they lost. So they tried to put most of the Indians on reservations. And they said to the Indians then, you are now basically a weak people. You've been a beaten people. And so the Indians said, well, as a beaten people, and we're on the reservation, what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do, unlike those blacks over there, unlike those black slaves who just came out of slavery, we're not going to be like them. We're not going to be as foolish as they are. What the Indians say is what we're going to do now is that since we've lost our land, we're going to first of all lay a claim against the land. So Indians laid a claim against the land, saying that all the land in the United States originally belonged to us. We had a natural right to it. That we know we didn't have any legal documents or any deeds showing we owned it. We have a legal claim to the land. So as a legal claim to the land, therefore you took it from us, you owe us. So what the claim was based on what they call natural rights. Indians says there's a natural right to the land because we were the first ones here on it. Even though in fact they were not the first, there's black people before those guys got here. So, but we don't talk about that today. Black people were here about 11 to 12,000 years before the present day so-called Asian Indians came here. Blacks have been here already. But they said that was their land. Okay, so therefore they...
Okay, so you heard that. Okay, so now that was a smart strategy that the Northern Kingdom used, right? They told the conquerors, they declared, and this is how wars are being fought, and this is how wars are generally fought anyway, is that they go through a court process first. Okay, so they make a claim and they present it to the dummies. Okay, so the dummies know for a fact that they were here before them. They know that. So them realizing that they were here before them, they had a legitimate claim. However, of course, they didn't give them the land, but they gave them control of the reservations, and also they gave them billions and billions of dollars. Also, when he said the blacks were here before the Native Americans, the blacks are the Native Americans, but he said 11, 12,000 years ago, which is impossible because that's just how it is. People didn't get to this land until around 650 BC, and so what they're seeing in the archaeology and the bones and things like this, and the stratus layers and things like this, is the results of all those bones and things like that are results of the flood. That before the continents were separated, they were all together, and then the flood occurred because the water in the earth had depressurized into the atmosphere, and the ice barrier around the earth had begun to melt, and it rained for the first time as well. So as the geysers were going up and the rain was coming down, it caused a worldwide flood and killed everything at the same time and buried them in different layers in the earth. And so as archaeologists go around the country uncovering those things, that's what they're seeing is the results of the flood. But secular scientists consider that to have happened over 16 million years ago and things like this here, which is completely false. But the main point is that this strategy of making a claim on the land, okay, since that failed, the reason that they got such little reparation funds, which is like something like $20,000 per person, it's like over 1 million or something people, and they got like $20,000 per person, got like $20 billion or something like that, right? So the reason that they get such a small amount is because the hoarders who have all the gold, all of Solomon's gold and things like this, and silver and platinum and art and gems, diamonds and rubies and all kinds of things. They already know that the Native Americans, the black ones, before the Asian ones came, and excluding the Hittite Native Americans, who were the white Native Americans, they already know that those the black Native Americans before Columbus and all that are Israelites. So they only give them partial, partial situations, partial money. They also rewarded the white Native Americans and the Asian Native Americans, in that bunch. So the white and Asian Native Americans have recently attempted to exclude all black people from being Native Americans, which is impossible because there weren't any white and Asian Native Americans until we got here. Once we got here, then other people started coming to this country. I say we, but I'm talking about my ancestors. My mother's side of my ancestry is Native American. My father's side of my ancestry is Judah. So it's mixed on both sides, actually. My father's side is Blackfoot Native American and Judah mixed, and then my mother's side is Sioux Native American and Judah mixed. So but that's neither here nor there. But what I'm saying is that the Native Americans, the black Native Americans, are the first people on this land, North and South America, North, South, and Central America, before the colonizers came here. And then before the colonizers came here, the white Native Americans and the Asian Native Americans came here as well. So they were warring with the Israelites that were here. So the Hittites and the Asian Native Americans were warring with the indigenous people who were here. The many various tribes that they had splintered off into, but they're all one part of one nation. So this is why the hoarders who run the keys to this video game that we're in, they know that the black Israelites, well, it's only one type of Israelite. It's a black Israelites and Hispanic Israelites and things like this, and Native American Israelites. But the Native Americans were black, and the Hispanics were black until they became mulatto, trying to survive colonialism. Okay, so they know that these Israelites are only part of the nation, so they give them part of the money. Hope that made sense. You know what I'm saying? Get back to this though.
Called natural law to lay claims against the land. So that meant they tried to impose an indebtedness on the government. Now blacks over here who's coming free after slavery with the shampoo on them with Lincoln. See, they said, we don't want anything. All we want is a chance to compete. We want equal opportunity. See, now Indians laid claims. All black folk wanted was an equal opportunity. Okay, then the Indians turned around and said, we want to be in.
You see the difference in approach? The sleep Israelites said they want to be equal. The Native Americans, who were also sleep Israelites, said that they own the whole land. So in essence, that looks superior to the white people. So since you are making a superior claim, then they will do everything in their power to make you equal to them. Well, we're already naturally superior. So whenever we make our claim this time, we have to do it properly. We have to do it from a stance of superiority. And in that way, they will attempt to negotiate us to equality. But of course, this time, according to the prophecies, we won't be negotiating that way, because their money cannot save them from their judgment. So when they try to bribe us with money, in this time, we're gonna stand our ground and not take the pennies that they try to throw at us, which would be 20 billion, 14 trillion. Those would be pennies compared to Solomon's resources, which is 1,750,000 tons of just the gold alone, and the total resources that Solomon amassed is worth close to 1 with 303 zeros behind it, or what was it, 66? Let me see. It's more than 1 with 303 zeros behind it. So even if we were to accept 10% of that, that would be a 1 with 30 zeros behind it. Okay, so just to put that in perspective, a trillion is a 1 with 12 zeros behind it. A billion is 1 with 9 zeros behind it. So that's a much more. If we were to accept 10% of that, which would kind of be fair, but if our claim was strong enough that the hoarders, and our strategy was strong enough that the hoarders would be forced to release all of Solomon's resources, then we would take all 303 zeros. But I don't think they're going to be intelligent enough to do any of this. But the claim and the strategy being placed on the world stage is going to cause calamity. You see, it's just like when Moses told Pharaoh to let Israel go into the wilderness for 3 days to worship their God, and he turned it down. That just caused the motion of the plagues. So we're going to do the same thing: is put a strong proposal, and then they have no choice but to accept it. And if they do not accept it, then they're going to be the plagues are just going to get worse and worse and worse for them until we're restored. And it says when the temple gets here, that the gates are going to be open day and night for the kings and queens to return everything they stole from us back to us day and night.
To a trust relationship in the United States. So they should have called a doctrine of trust for Indians, which says, since we are a weak and powerless people, since we don't own and control anything, then since you all beat us and you've misused us and own us now, then you owe it to us to take care of us. You see, you said you owe it to us to take care of us, so they call it a doctrine of trust. So the Indians then created a doctrine of trust so the United States government would take care of them. And as a result of that, see, then they could get free land, free labor, free medical care, free education, free casinos, okay? Tax exempt status and pay no taxes, okay? Now, here are my people over here talking about, we want, first of all, all we want is equal opportunity. We don't want you to give us anything. We don't want a handout. All we want is equal opportunity. Okay, the first thing. Secondly, where Indians they said, we're a powerful, strong people. We don't need anything. Where Indians said, we're weak, take care of us. Then over here, Indians then said, we don't, but.
Okay, so did you hear that psychology there? See, they're using the psychology of what works, which is, like, say, for example, I would go to court, right now, and I'm in front of the judge, which is something that I would not do, because I would not go to their temples. A court is just a temple for Baal, okay, or Baal. So they're practicing magic in court. So I wouldn't go there because I can't be a part of magic. But if I was in the court, like like you say, you have a sleep Israelite out there. You know, there's many sleep Israelites who still go to court. So if I'm standing in front of the judge and he says, "How do you plead?" and I say I'm an idiot, I say I don't understand anything you're saying. I'm an idiot, and you know he's gonna ask a couple more times. What? You don't understand a word I'm saying? No, sir. I don't understand a word you're saying. I'm an idiot. See, this is legal. This is their magic. You see, you lower yourself so that Yah can be lifted up. You understand? It's the same principle in our Bible. You lower yourself so that Yah can be lifted up. Okay, so you know they integrate biblical principles in the satanic world as well. Except the problem with their methodology is that they include every single religion in their governing, which causes monster conflicts. You know, because all the ideologies don't agree with each other. So you know, a house divided can't stand, and that's why they're coming down now. So the same methodology that the Indians use, we're going to use. They called themselves weak and defeated, which that's what we were. We were almost utterly destroyed, but we were not utterly destroyed, so that a remnant can grow up in the last days and go through the birth pains of becoming a nation, and to get the power over the nations. Their power is resources, water, you know, gold, silver, platinum, diamonds, rubies, jade, and things like that. So that's their power. In order for us to get power over them, is we have to have money on their level or much greater. And the richest family on earth only has $350 billion. They might even have a trillion or two. But a recent lawsuit last year, in June of last year, 2014, the U.S. government sued a particular entity or a group of people who have control over $14 trillion in just gold bullion alone. So $14 trillion can buy $350 billion 20 times over. You know, and you know, it can buy a trillionaire 14 times over. You see what I mean? So Solomon's gold is estimated at over one with 303 zeros behind it. So if we had all of that, we would be the rulers of the earth, of course, clearly. Even if we had 10% of that, which would, you know, kind of sounds just about right for me. You know, I'm comfortable with that, which is one with 30 zeros behind it. That will be enough money to rule the world as well. And that's our goal, is to rule the world righteously while they're ruling the world wickedly and polluting the atmosphere and the air and the water and polluting mines and killing little babies on the tune of you know, 300,000 babies a day in America. So you know,
we don't want to mix with you all. We are a separate people. We want to stay to ourselves. What we want to do is declare ourselves a nation. We're going to declare ourselves a nation, and we're going to write our own constitution to take care of our own people. Now go back over here to these ones that are being shampooed. See, what they want to say is, we want to be a part of your constitution. We want to move into y'all.
You see that? See, the black people want to integrate into the satanic system instead of separating and creating their own nation and be having the same opportunities as the Native Americans and the Jewish who claimed our homeland. The Japanese have done the same by getting reparations as well, and quite a few other groups have gotten reparations. Okay, so they all separate, which is mandated by the Bible for us to separate from their satanic system. Okay, now that doesn't mean we can't still be interdependent with them through trade and things like this. And that interdependency causes a level of wealth for them, and that's the only thing that they're concerned with is having money and being able to have sex as much as they want. That's the only thing they care about is just having sex. So that's that on that part.
And they never want to be able to say that we're a nation. And so developing some kind of a constitution or national plan or empowerment for ourselves like the Indians did. That's why I wrote this new book I got come out called POWERNOMICS. That's what it's about. Say, for once in your life, quit being shampooed, wake up and smell the coffee. So I wrote that one to say now, like the Indians, we're going to be a separate nation. We're going to be a nation of people just like Indians are.
You see that? But see, where I differ in strategy with him is that realizing that the Northern Kingdom is classified and identified under the Native American reparations already, then it's possible for us to plug into those reparations to even give us the startup funds in order to pursue this more effectively and more efficiently, and go ahead and make our plea to the world stage. But we have to be in our proper character. You see, we have to know that we're Israelites. We have to dress the part, and we have to act the part. And the only way to receive your inheritance is through the wonderful Son, Emmanuel Hamashiach of Nazareth. Everyone knows him by Jesus Christ. So Solomon's gold has been passed down through the generations. Possibly from my research, this is possible. Don't hold me to this, but it looked like the majority of those resources were given to Assyria whenever they tried to save the kingdom from Assyria invading again, and they had to give Hezekiah, I think it was, had to give Assyria a large portion of the resources, and they stripped the temple and all that. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, I think that is the gold that has been handed down through generations. But see, conquering doesn't count. Well, you can't conquer people, take everything that they have, and then claim that it's yours. You can't break in somebody's house, kick them out or kill them, and then tell their children that that's your house. You see, that's not how it works. Because when they come back to claim it, they have a natural right, a God-given right to seek retribution over you killing their parents and stealing their house, which was their inheritance. So that's what happened to us. Our father was murdered in cold blood, and then he became the perfect sacrifice to save us from utter destruction. Okay, so we were destroyed just enough due to the mistake of Manasseh to become captives in every land. Okay, so that time period is either over or it's coming to an end shortly. I don't know the exact date, but I know that we're still in captivity. So We just have to work on it and keep plugging at it, and we have to perform the prophecies, and we have to prophesy. So we have to say these things out loud to as many people as possible. They need to accept it because it's true, and also by telling these people, the cry is heard on high by the highest, because we're in proper form. We're doing what he tells us to do. We're doing everything in the Bible that we're told to do, and then by performing the righteous acts and practicing the righteous acts and prophesying this way, the Father will heal our land, and that means restoring the goodly and pleasant things that were stolen from the temple.
And the way the Indians got it approved, that's after they set their constitution. They kept calling themselves a nation. And even though blacks in America are a nation within a nation, they've always been a nation within a nation. Black folk are just as segregated now as they were in 1954. You're still not integrated in anything. You're just as segregated now. You're still a nation within a nation. All they have to do is declare themselves a nation, get them a constitution, and that's what you're going to get in POWERNOMICS. Y'all make sure you buy that book when it comes out, okay? You're going to get that. Now, so they got that set up. Now, what we want to do then is, so the Indians then said, they kept playing around this thing about being a nation, being a sovereign nation, call themselves a foreign nation because they had to deal with the federal government, because the federal government was protecting the citizens. So then about 1832, a Supreme Court justice named John Marshall, and he ruled and made it official, because at that time we had a do-gooder white liberal out messing around with the Indians on the reservation, and I think it was in Georgia, and somebody, there was a law in Georgia that said, you know, they didn't want whites on the reservation stirring up the Indians. So the whites arrested him, put him in jail, something like this. He appealed, and they sentenced him to something like 15 years imprisonment. He then appealed and went to the Supreme Court. He got in the Supreme Court in 1832. Chief Justice Marshall ruled and says that the Indians are a separate nation. He picked up that rhetoric that Indians have been pushing about being a separate nation. And then he said, well, the Indians are a separate nation, so therefore this guy got a right to go out there when he wanted to. And when he made that ruling in 1832, that officially then made in our constitutional laws, they started accepting Indians being a separate nation. Okay? Now they're a separate nation, and
okay, you notice that they have recognized Native Americans as a separate nation. Okay, so the prophecy says that Gad will be overcome by a troop, and Gad will overcome at the end. So since we're at the end, Gad, overcame, and they're basically free now. They're not totally free, because the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom are going to become one stick. So once we assert reality into the world scene, which we, Israelites have been doing for a long time, since probably, the late 1800s. Been telling everybody that the Israelites, that we're the Israelites, but since that time they've developed so many lies to drown us out. They did a media blackout on us close to the 90s. Before that, in the late 1800s, that's when they developed the theory of evolution and the struggle for the survival of favorite races. I might didn't say that correctly, but the favorite races is the white race, and so that's why we should become white, but not physically, but mentally, in status as well. So that theory of evolution did a major drown out of the reality that the Israelites are not lost tribes, and they actually know who they are. You got mostly the Levites are in the African diaspora, because they couldn't get captured because they were more dedicated to Torah than everyone else. And when the Arabs, when the Arabs did their sub-Saharan slave trade, they beat Israelites into submission, and they got tired of getting murdered and genocided, and became Islamic. And by them worshiping Allah instead of Yah and the wonderful Son, Yah decided to make our ancestors jealous by keeping us in subjection that way. Okay, so it gets complicated, but you know.
And with sovereignty, and now watch what happens now. Now they're getting dual benefit. They're getting reparations all the time. Now, Indians now, that means every state set up an Indian commission. Every state has a separate Indian commission now to give Indians what they want, because they're under the doctrine of trust, that they are dependent people and you have to take care of them, those on the reservation. And they're never going to lose the reservation because they're not stupid. Why would they leave the reservation? They sit there and be taken care of. And you always got people that look how poor they are. Yes, they're poor because they ain't going to leave there. They want you to bring it to them. They can leave anytime they want to. Any poverty the Indians got is poverty they sit there waiting with for you to come resolve for them. They don't have to stay on the reservation. They stay there because that's free land and free everything. So when they set up that kind of a trust, Indians then sat there and waited for it. But see, we didn't set up that kind of trust. And when they got that ruling, that made it legitimate then that Indians were now an official foreign nation. Then every state then set up an Indian commission, and that gives Indian services. Then they set up a federal Indian Bureau in Washington, D.C. The federal Indian Bureau typically puts out something like about $23,000 to $26,000 a year for every Indian in the United States. Then you got the biggest Indian tribe in the United States, the Cherokee tribe, that picks up in terms of reparations. They pick up something like about 155,000 Cherokee Indians out there to get $770 million a year in reparation funds. So Indians are getting all kinds of reparations. Indians have been getting reparations through treaties now, through land and free everything now for 200-some years. Black folk have got nothing because you went the wrong way. You cannot sit there and want to be a part of white society and that's exactly what the game they want you to play. Rather than say, no, I'm a separate nation. You have problems, you owe me just like you owe the Indians. The Indians should be your model.
And see, that's the point right there. You do not have to assimilate and integrate in order to receive vast amounts of funds and resources for a nation. And the only way that you can receive this money, you must have a plan in place. It must be clear and concise. It must be bullet pointed. You know, it's got to be point for point for point. You got to know what you're talking about. You got to make the accusations clear, and you got to have the dates right and things like that. You know, so when we come up with this plan, you have to accuse the nations of what they did, and you know, and the majority of everything they've done is documented. You know, I know a little bit about their atrocities, but it's very well documented and easily researchable because of the internet and Freedom of Information Act. Also, leaks, you know, WikiLeaks, and how a few years back one of the top guys had leaked information about the Vatican, and that's why that last pope retired, the first pope to ever retire, because you know they're purposely burying the information of Israelites around the world. They're confederate to do so in order to keep us impoverished. And see, the poverty destroys the people. You see what I mean? So when you're rich, you have a better opportunity to survive and continue to flourish life and to spread the biblical message correctly to the four corners of the earth that way.
And that's why Indians now can walk into all the cities and now set up special casinos. You only got 237 Indian reservations in the United States. And Indians now got 258 casinos in the United States. They've run out of reservations to even put casinos on. And typically those casinos bring in $1 million a day per casino. Not in revenue, not $1 million a day in revenue, $1 million a day in profits. So the Indians now took those funds as reparation funds, and now they are taking that money, and they're building economic structures for their people. They're building shopping malls and centers and all kinds of things, industries for their people. While we sit here looking for handouts through affirmative action that everybody else is giving away to everybody else but us.
You see that? So they're now building like crazy to get their nation together, and their nation is located right here in the United States. So you can't be afraid of these things. You know what I'm saying? They're not gonna fly over the reservations and blow them the kibbles and bits. They're not gonna fly over the casinos and blow them the kibbles and bits. You know what I'm saying? So that we're different. They know that those Native Americans are Israelites, except for the Asians and the white ones, but there's so many, they're mixed together so much, and they're building together that they can't touch the Israelites because they're surrounded by, they're mingled with other nations. You know what I mean? And they don't want to destroy like white people and Asian people and stuff like that. They only want to destroy the Israelites. So they're insulated in that way. All right. So once we come up, the same thing is going to happen to us, because the other nations are going to be clinging to us based on the Bible. Once they realize the Bible is true and all these prophecies keep coming true, and we keep telling them that these prophecies are reality, then they're going to be clinging to us, and they're going to be around us all the time. So we're going to be insulated just like them. Okay, so later on, he talks about different forms of reparations, which I wanted to discuss. I wanted you to hear this because this is the clear, he gets way further into detail in his book, Power Economics. I suggest you buy that book. So, but he gives a little glimpse of it right here.
There are no longer. Whites must understand that the days of the thrill are gone. Now, to get the thrill, you got to get the bill. Okay. Now, as we get our money, we got to move our resources into several things. We start developing it. When we get these funds, keep in mind, no black person should be looking for money individually. We're not going to get into that bag. No black money comes except those who are going to be a part of some of our national suits. Any black.
Okay, that's a fair idea, but like I said, he made this a very long time ago, and since then, actually since 2001, it was the UN had declared slavery a crime against humanity, which means that if I do a crime today, tomorrow, if I do something today that is illegal as far as the law, and then tomorrow it becomes illegal, I can be tried, and convicted of the legal thing that I did yesterday that has now become illegal today. That's how severe a crime against humanity is. It's equivalent to war crimes. So which a war crime could be legal when it's done, and then later on it's classified as a war crime, and then they can be tried for what they did in the past that they had pushed the line of legality on earlier. So with them stating that slavery is a crime against humanity, now 2 women who had already had done their family research, they went and sued for individual reparations. And they both won the cases. One won like $5 million and the other one won like $25 million or something like that. So that is possible to happen. All you have to do is do your family research back into 1860-ish, when it becomes impossible to do your family research because they were slaves and numbers at that time didn't have names and things like that. And slaves were also the first people to have birth certificates. So if you find a very early birth certificate from the 1860s and things like this, then you can easily prove that you had one slave in your family. If you can prove that you had one slave in your family, then they realize that you are an Israelite and that you are entitled to money from the state for the slavery that the Israelites went through in America and around the world.
It becomes a part of our national suit. You can get money directly. We'll be having hearings through the Harvest Institute in Washington, Detroit, and Los Angeles, where we'll be taking testimony, making blacks a part of a national suit, because we're going to be going after about 257 white corporations, okay? Now, if we win that, you get money. The rest of you blacks don't get any money that way. The way you get your money, the money's going to go into special funds in the country between 2 regional development banks on both sides of the country. And what we do then, black folk can go to those banks and borrow that money, either to get long-term, low-interest loans of no more than about 1% interest rate, or the money will go in to help you start a business as equity capital so you don't have any debt, okay? Two, the other thing we do, we take that money and use a lot of that money to set up a special fund also to go back and recapture our black colleges and bring them back home so they can take care of their original business, okay? 3, we're going to try to take our money to go back and rebuild our black communities and try to put it for the infrastructure, repairs them and improvement of the looks of them. And also we're going to try to take that money for black communities and build factories across America. There are industries we can take and build businesses to be competitive. We're also going to take our power that comes with that and try to set up special exempt status for black folk in some of these ghetto areas. We got ghetto lands. Those lands should be redistributed to black folk. You got a lot of state-owned land, federal land, and ghetto land, and abandoned land in these black cities that don't belong to anybody. We want a land redistribution program. Black folk were never involved in the Homestead Acts in this country. All that land with the white folks. We want to get our land act together so we can get some land. And also what we want to do is to be able to help black folk. We want to also take some of that money that comes to us. We want to set up a special kind of an organization like the Harvest Institute. It may even be the Harvest Institute, that will go around this country and act just like the Jewish Committee, the National Committee of Jews, which says we will watch and monitor exactly who's coming after black folk and bothering black folk so we can protect black folk. But I can go on and on to tell you what all the things we're going to do, but the Harvest Institute right now is about the only think tank you got, the only thing that represents black folk in this country. We don't mind being black, even though all of our black entertainers and black athletes and doctor answers. What's the Harvest Institute for? I said, it's black folk. This is what does it do? I have to help black folk. This is who's running it. We said black folk. They said, ooh, too black. I don't know how anything gets to be too black when nothing is too Indian, too Jewish, too white. You see, all white people in America got their own communities, their own churches, their own business, and their own schools, and nobody ever says something is too white. But the minute you started to help black folk, it's too bad or too black. And so we're going to deal with all those too blacks too, okay? But the last thing I want to tell you about this is that we're going to come together as a group. We need your support in this country, and it's a new day for black folk. We're going to go after.
You see that? So he laid out, some quick little points, and he gets into deeper comprehension of that in power economics, and I'll be covering that in later sessions of this. You know, I might get into that by part 8 or 9. Okay, so but see where I would differ with him on the amount of monies to receive. He's talking about some billions of dollars. You see, the amount of money that we would be asking for is 10% of Solomon's resources, which is entitled to Israelites. Okay, so 10% of that would be, you know, like I said, upwards of one with 30 zeros behind it. So you know, all these strategies can be implemented, you know, times 100. And also, as far as getting some land, you know, me personally, you know, that's why I need other people's input, because I would claim the entire earth, because it says the meek will inherit the earth, and that is our inheritance. You know, every square inch of the earth, the space above the earth, to infinite miles, and the space below the earth to the center, the center atom of the earth. So you know, that's just my idea about those two things. but the methodology and the implementation and the strategy that he has laid out in his lessons are very well thought out. You know, so I want to implement his strategies. You know. Okay, so that's all for this video here that I want to play. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got here. Since this is a recap, right? I'm gonna take a moment to show you what I read yesterday, because I didn't know how to screen share yesterday, but now I do. I want to show you what I was reading here. Okay. So the first thing I was reading is the Central Bank of Philippines, Office of the Board of the Governor, the bilateral Minesfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement. Okay, so I'm not going to read it today, but I want you to see that, you know, it's a what do you call those things? Like a let me see, it's a certificate. Okay, so the certificate itself is redeemable for money, but of course we don't have the original. But there's codes in these communications that I read yesterday that gives us the ability to converse with the beneficiary of Solomon's trust, and his name is Wolfgang Struck, and he has an attorney that I think you have to go through the doorkeeper, the attorney, to get there, or you might have to go through Karen Hudez. I forget his attorney's name, but I just wanted you to see that you know, it's signed all over the place, and you know, and it discusses everything we talked about, you know, with this guy who has a code name right here, TVM LSM 666, you know, which could be significant in itself. And this guy has since died, and he estimates his the value of his his estate to be at, let me see if it's in this one. Okay. So yeah, it just shows all the signatures again. You know, you got Dwight Eisenhower and Harry Truman, you know, and all kinds of world leaders for the satanic one world government. Okay, that signed this thing. So the only reason, logical reason that I can say that these people have not just completely just taken them every dime of it for themselves. And so this says that Wolfgang Struck represents the beneficiary by deed of assignment of a waiver of interest and rights, duly signed by Marcos Reverend Dr. Floro E. Garcia. And that's Mr. Struck's attorney right here. Reverend Dr. Floro E. Garcia. So I suppose we have to go through here. I guess he's a gatekeeper or something to get the Wolfgang Struck to have a conversation to prove that we have a plan to build a nation effectively and efficiently by utilizing our money, which is Solomon's money. And you know, this details a lot of information. You can just go to part 1, Israelites, Brainstorm, Reparations on YouTube, and I'll read this whole thing, all 3 of these. And also I read the will, the last will and testament of the Gentile man who claims to own all of these resources. So in his last will and testament, I believe that's on next page here. Okay, it's the Q&A on gold coming out of hiding. Okay, but like I was saying about the only reason that I can logically think of why Satan doesn't just completely just wipe us out and take all the gold for himself and things and all the resources for himself is because it's not possible for him to do so, because the Father protects us, and he clearly must be protecting his resources as well. You know, I mean, supernaturally. Okay. So right here, and I read all this yesterday, and then I clicked one of these links here. I clicked the Karen Hudez link here, but I also clicked let's check and see if this is it. One of these jokers is the last will and testament. Okay. See if I can find it for you right quick. Last will and testament of Ferdinand. Allow that. Okay, last will and testament of Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines. Okay, so you know, I suspect you can't hold this to me because I'm not perfectly 100% sure, but I suspect that a lot of wars deal with these resources that this man had. until he died, and now it's in a trust. So why didn't he just leave it to his family? See, it must have been wicked, and he must be. Uh, they must be waiting on Israel to come back in their proper form and their proper persona as righteous nation of kings and priests in order to claim these resources. See, it says here, last will and testament, know to all men these presents, that I, Ferdinand Adrillan Marcos, with diffused code name AAA-777 and spiritual King Solomon of Israel, of legal age, married to Emita Romualdez Marcos E. Ongpen, President of the Philippine Islands and general holder of the following assets and properties entrusted to me by the Eternal Creator for the benefit of the people of the Philippine Islands. To with, okay, so this is what you see. So this is what he thinks it's worth. Okay, so the financial provenances with AAA account number FM-01-777 worth of 120 with all these zeros behind it dollars. Okay, so spiritual Wonder Boy account, which is a different account, worth of 800 with all these zeros behind it. You see that? So you got 243 zeros right here, and then you got a whole bunch of other zeros. I counted them for you yesterday. In part one. Okay, so that is the amount of assets that he has accrued in his lifetime from that was passed on to him. He inherited that, and he did not give his inheritance to anyone in his family. So why would you do that? Why would you put it in a separate trust when you could just have your family just take the money and just do whatever they want with it? Okay, the reason is it's claimable, and many people make claims to these funds, but they are rejected. And I'm pretty sure every Zionist on earth has made a claim to these funds. So they're clearly being rejected for a reason, and the only logical reason that I can think of is that it's being protected until Israel comes into their proper persona and make the claim for this. So we have to have an election and appoint a leader over us in order to place the accusations to UN and the Copenhagen Court, World Court, and accuse all the nations of conspiring to make our name no longer a remembrance in the earth. And we have to make our accusations very clear and true and dated. You have to cite the date and the locations of when and where they did things. And that's why the Father makes Satan keep such a meticulous record in order to keep their atrocities recorded for us to remember at this time. Okay, so if you look here, it said brought by the undersigned to the United States of America worth $20 billion or 10 metric tons of gold bars that preserved beneath the World Trade Center in New York City, USA. So that's what they had in under the World Trade Center was 20 billion in just in gold alone. You see, and then it talks about the history here. And see, they just keep referencing Israel. So all these fake Kemites they're gonna be shit out of luck whenever we come into our inheritance, because we're gonna be so stinking rich. Uh, all the rest of the prophecies are going to fall in line instantly. We're going to be the rulers because the natural resources of the earth is the power over the earth, is the power over the other nations, because that's all they want to do is just get money and stuff like this. They love money. They have greed, you know. So when you can buy them 600 times, you know, you can buy $1 trillion 600 times with like as if it's 5 cents or a penny, then they're gonna fold to everything that we want done, and everything that we want done is gonna be the Father's will, perfectly executed on the earth. So that, you know, that includes population control as well. We're also going to depopulate the earth. 2/3 of Israel is going to be destroyed, uh, and uh, all of Esau is going to be, well, the majority of Esau is going to be destroyed. You know, and maybe down to maybe 1% of them, and then you know, all the other nations are going to have to pay for their atrocities that they've done to the apple of God's eye. Okay, so like here, it just keeps mentioning Israel because this is who it's reserved for. So that's why I said I could be wrong about this being the Assyrian heritage, because inheritance, because it would make sense that the Assyrian inheritance would still be passed on throughout their family, because they don't care how wicked they are, and they would just keep passing it on throughout their generations forever. And that's probably where these extremely wealthy people like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and things like that are getting their inheritance from, is from that Assyrian fortune. They're just sharing that throughout the ages and claiming that they're good, astute businessmen, when they're just, all they're doing is just squandering the money that, you know, that they stole. Okay, so here it says in the history that the undersigned was sole holder of said assets and properties that entrusted through channeled events from King Bernardo Carpio, or spiritual judge Samson of Israel, who shared his testimony over said treasures of the Philippine Islands through papers of his legal deposits under White Magnolia account, and who acquired the foreign traders and Alpha Omega ring with old text printed paper from the time of Adam. Okay, so you got printed paper that survived since Adam, and that was the scrolls and things that Noah had protected and took on the ship with them, and that's how you know a lot about what happened before the flood. Into Noah, into Prophet Moses, Judge Samson, King David, and King Solomon of Israel, that the undersigned hereto into will be transmitted directly to Anthony Santiago Martin with international recognized code name and number, Spiritual Wonder Boy, and AM-01, and Spiritual King David of Israel, and legitimate husband of Lynn Grace H. Medina, with recognized code name and number, Spiritual Maria Christina, and C1-C2, and Spiritual Bathsheba of Israel, which those treasures, way back time from year 965 AD, were agreed upon and executed by and between King Carpio and foreign traders such as Mongols, Koreans, Indians, Malays, Japanese, and Chinese, indicated that in exchange of trade and loan from the Philippine Islands, which the islands were very rich from physical gold, silver, diamond, and platinum mines, that those traders must be paid twice of their actual loan materials, as sample is 1 piece of gold, with 1 gram must be paid 2 pieces of gold per gram. And from year 965 to year 1000, Mongolia raiders traded and agreed such nature of trading in the Philippine Islands until they planned to rock and invade the Philippine Islands, and from time being, foreign invaders through Mongolia and Chinese counterparts were retrieved some remaining papers left by King Carpio stating that before he offered sacrifice to block and hinder rolling stones in Mount Sierra in the town of Montalban and a nearby town of Rodriguez Rizal province, he left those treasures to the people of the Philippine Islands, and he stood Dalictuna or Maria Banaha, a lady shaman of Mount Banaha in Quezon province or spiritual Delilah, to take charge as trustee over said treasures. And as time has passed by, Mongolia, in aid of Philippine treasures, invaded more lands in the Asian region. Then, when they took unpredictable empires, they landed throughout Asia regions. Then, from year 1206 to 1294, they invaded the landed more land in the Western regions, including the Holy Land and Eastern Europe. So when they say the Holy Land, they're talking about Israel. And some in the remote area of the American continents until Mongolia and their reoccupation of more lands in the world, leaving said Carpio documents in China after they receipt downfall on year 1290s until the Western civilization correspond invasion of more lands outside their area, and Spain was one of the among European expedition and adventure to conquest lands outside Spain, first in Latin America, then thereafter in the Philippine Islands. Spain and other European counterparts learned that those Mongolian treasures, the used to be as retrieved from Eastern Europe, were sustained with Mongolian raiders, but they didn't know that those treasures were wholly partly influenced by Carpio's treasures. So you see that it clearly says that the Mongolian and Asian boys who are the Mongolian and Asian Native Americans didn't get here until 12 around like 1206. You see, and the Israelites were here in about 650 BC. You see, so this is they didn't show up till over 1,000 years later, probably close to like let me see, 650. Then you got 1,650 years later, they showed up in the Americas with. It was already rich. They already had the treasure, so that's why you saw so much gold in the satanic temples that they built down there in Mexico and things like that. They had gold everywhere, and then when they got here, they mined even more resources and things like that. You see, so they had a certain a certain level of continuity and ability to sway the Europeans into doing certain things because they already had the resources to do so in order to do what? Conquer. They wanted to conquer the Israelites as well. So when they came here to the United States and Central America and South America and Canada, their goal was to come over here. And I mean, they probably didn't even know that Israelites were over here. But once they got here and saw the Israelites were over here, that's when major wars started happening. And the Israelites would mate with them in order to survive and things like that. And that's kind of why some Israelites look Asian and Mongolian and things like that. So it was a lot of that happened. And a lot of genocide happened as well. So I just wanted to make that part clear. Okay, so those European invaders used that Carpio's treasure to invade. You see the European invaders used Carpio's treasure to invade more land outside of Europe and Spain through cheating with blood compact by and between King Sikatuna and King Sigala of Bahal and General Miguel Lopez de Legazpi of Spain and Mexico, dated March 16, 1565. And that's when they started deciding that the Israelites all over the earth that they didn't realize was everywhere hiding from persecution was there in those lands. And so they decided to, you know, conquer all those people, but they were having infinite problems because they couldn't beat us. So because there was so few of them, but so they had to do marketing campaigns and smear campaigns and things like this, and then they had to get permission from the Pope, which would get all the countless zombies that the Pope controls to help them defeat the Israelites that were everywhere. That they were trying to get into the lands to get the natural resources and spices and, you know, whatever else they wanted to find from the earth, and hoard it and keep it for themselves and sell it back to everyone else. So I mean, even Israelites were surprised in the Bible when the people stole the water and then sold the water to them. They were like, oh man, they sell us water. So they would, you know, that's how that goes. So they recovered some Carpio's treasures. Remember, Carpio's treasures is the treasures that they traded with the Mongolians and the Asians and all them people over there from the Philippines and stuff like that, which was an Israelite province. You see, because they controlled the Israelites, ruled the world. David and Solomon ruled the known world over there, which was, you know, Europe and Asia and parts of Africa. So they would frequently mine everywhere, Timbuktu and all kinds of places. Okay, so they recovered some Carpio's treasures in Bahal province as acquired by Malekta Bali or Maria Christina, a lady shaman of Mount Kanloan in Negroes province. Okay, so what do you think Negroes province is? You see the dictionary, Compact Bible Dictionary tells you that the Israelites are the Negroes. I'm gonna paraphrase what it says. It says that Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, and other common African names. So Africa used to be called Ethiopia, the entire continent Africa. The Mediterranean Sea used to be called the Ethiopian Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean used to be called the Ethiopian Ocean. Okay, so Negroes province is clearly an Israelite province, because that's what we are. We're the Negroes, we're the niggers, which the Negro means black, nigger means black. It's like that. Until, okay, so she was a lady shaman in the Negroes province through Daliktuna, as said province was encountered Great Depression. So the shared some fiscal and food aid from Maria Christina and Maria Banaha to recover from hungriness, and leaving pain and heartbreaks among Filipinos until Dr. Jose Rizal or spiritual prophet Moses of Israel born, and spiritual David in aid of great creator. Ascend young Rizal until he ended scholastic profession in University of St. Thomas, leaving suffering, unfairness, pain, and distress over Spanish deans and priests until he met Maria Clara del Prado, or transferred spiritual power of Maria Banasha, then hand over an Alpha Omega ring, leaving a message that he must be recovered documents of King Carpio in custody of the Chinese Emperor Zhangzu. Then Dr. Rizal, unclear. Islands went to Hong Kong, where Emperor Zhangzu visited Hong Kong, that under the custody of the unclear, Dr. Rizal successfully gained that Carpio's documents. Then he fled Hong Kong to European cities such as Madrid, Vienna, London, Paris, and Berlin with unclear, carrying some miraculous gold mines. After Dr. Rizal European travels, he went back to the islands. Spanish rulers there persecuted him and put pain to him, persecution of Spanish regime, until he decided to execute death penalty to gunshots on December 30th, 1896 in Bagumbayan, now called Lucia, Manila. And before Dr. Rizal died in unfortunate execution, he left those treasures for the benefit of the people of the Philippine Islands, as he stood to be a trustee over said treasures of Carpio, and resolved to M.A. period Epifania M. Cardona Castillos, known as Mana, unclear. Okay, so that's another code name, of course, Mana. And then talks about the reason it has unclear in here, because the dude that was translating the text from Filipino couldn't read some of the handwriting, so he put unclear in what he couldn't read. Okay, so what else we got here? See all these code words and all these talking about, this is all Israelite heritage here, and this could be a major reason why the Philippines is plagued with tsunamis, and they be getting destroyed all the time, because they're hoarding our inheritance. They don't even give it to their own Filipino people. So let alone, they're not trying to give it to us. So but if they don't give it, these people are just insane. They don't care anything about anything. So they just move away from the island whenever they see the destruction. Sinukuan and spiritual Saint Mary, a material recognized mother of Jesus, and through his death, the people of the Philippine Islands found to be revolted against the Spanish colonies. And from the date of Dr. Rizal's death execution until obtaining temporary liberation on June 12, 1898, Filipino revolutionists fought against the Spaniards until they overthrown in the islands, but the American authorities entered the islands after their ratification of treaty with Spain under the Treaty of Paris, dated December 10th, 1898. In Paris, France, and Spain sold the islands to the United States of America, worth $20 million American dollars, with an old Philippine map, documents printed by King Carpio, and said map was entitled "To Titulo de Propiedad Numeral 4136. And time and again, the American authorities reoccupied the islands using that treaty in the absence of the Filipino representatives, and unfortunately, General Emilio Aguinaldo sold Titulo de Propiedad Numeral 4136, which is the map, the survey of the the island, the amount of land that's in the island, that has been bought by Dr. Rizal to Spain in the sum of $20 million American dollars, that caused severely for Dr. Rizal to accuse by Spanish regime from Spanish monarchy to Spanish governor general in the islands as seditious rebellion against Spanish regime in the islands. and they immediately canceled and terminated all registered properties of Spain in the islands, including that property, and they initiated to resurvey the islands under a new survey by virtue of the mandate and instruction made by President William McKinley to General Robert Torrens and President William H. Taft of the Philippine Commission to resurvey the islands in order to assure their legal occupation in the islands. And after they resurveyed the islands, they measured approximately more than 451,000 square kilometers, covering the islands of Luzon to the islands of Sabah. And by virtue of the Lands Registration Act number 496, enacted by the Philippine Commission, led by President William H. Taft, the Philippine Islands was entitled to original certificate of title number 779 under Land Survey Plan number 11-4509 and registered under Lands Registration Act of 496. Okay, so I'm not going to read the rest of this, but I read the whole thing in part 1. I just wanted to give you a little taste of it so that you can go to part 1 and hear the entire situation. Okay, but it's a very interesting last will and testament, and it's clearly being held for Israel. You know, as you can see all over the place, how they talk about King David of Israel and Bathsheba of Israel, and, you know, the Wonder Boy and Mary and all this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to recap that for you. Hope that was clear. I'm gonna go and get a sign out of here, and I'm gonna do part 3 tomorrow. All right. So you have a great day.